All right, so our first prompt is to create a comparison of the strengths for each of the empires that are listed. Just two empires here, the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire. So there's going to be two components to this essay. You need to be able to identify the strengths for each of these empires. So I'm going to be giving you a couple sets of strengths for each of the empires, and we'll look at them, try to look at them consistently for each of the Greek and the Roman Empire. And from this, we should be able to craft our essay response from this. So let's move into looking at the Greek Empire. The first thing that you'll notice with the Greek Empire is you see that I have this broken down between the military and the government. If you'd like to read about the Greek Empire, you're going to need to look at pages 8 and 9 in our textbook. So with the military of the Greek Empire, typically when people think of the military in terms of the Greeks, you're going to tend to look more towards the Spartans or towards Alexander the Great. Both of those two groups are going to be the strongest association with the strength of the military in the Greek Empire. So Sparta was a city-state, early city-state of the Greeks, and they were known for their militaristic behavior. They were known for their strength. They stood up to the Persian Empire and withstood the strength of the Persians. Alexander also, later on in the Greek Empire, actually expands the Greek Empire across most of the known world. His leadership actually was demonstrated from a very early age, and he it ascends to the position of leadership in the Greek Empire after his father dies. And at a young age of like 20 years old, he begins to lead the Greek Empire as it continues to expand across the world. His military success was based very much off of his ability to lead his men, and he was willing to, after he conquered an area, after he moved his troops through an area, to actually reap the benefits of the territory by looking to see who was brilliant, who was smart in the territories that he conquered, and he would adopt new strategies, new tactics and techniques based off of what he learned from the territories that he conquered. But he also brought Greek thought. He brought Greek society and culture across the world. And he mixes this, actually. We call this Hellenism. He mixes this with the cultures and societies that he comes in contact with. And so Hellenism, this idea of imitating the Greeks, Greek culture expands across the world. We see influences of Greek architecture even in places like Africa and into stretching into Asia as well. And if Alexander hadn't been stopped by his men, they eventually say, no, we're done. We're not going to continue to conquer anymore. When he gets to India, they basically say, we're done, we're tired, we need to go back home. That's what causes Alexander to stop, to quit. Now, in terms of the Greek Empire, when it comes to the government, this was also something that caused them to stand out, to stand apart. Athenian democracy. So Athens was the rival city-state of Sparta. So while Sparta was known for their military, Athens was known for their democratic engagement, the idea that all men should have a voice in the democratic process. Another aspect that we see that's significant in the Greek Empire in terms of the government was Greek philosophy. People like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, these men were the early voices that led to the development of a uniquely Greek thought and end up actually being the motivating influence for Greek thought and Western philosophy going forward. Greece ultimately becomes heavily dependent upon the leadership style of Alexander because he is such a powerful ruler, because he is such a powerful conqueror. Greece does move away from the democratic style and tends to rely on strong leaders like Alexander. So they do go through a process. They start out and show promise of adopting democracy, but later they tend to resort back to the strong authoritarian ruler styles of Alexander the Great. But it is from Greece that we get the ideas of democracy that we hang on to today. All right, so let's talk about the Roman Empire, which you can read about on pages 9 and 10 in our textbook. Rome, in terms of their military, their military is more nationally based, where in Greece we were talking about the Spartan military state. The Roman Empire grows and expands because of the successful strategies of their military. They had a ever increasing powerful military that expands the Roman Empire across the world. And an interesting aspect of this is that they unite so many people under the Roman Empire that a large portion of the world was under the control of the Romans. And that was in large part due to the military. Now, ultimately, the Roman military is not going to be able to provide the strength that's needed to sustain the empire, but for hundreds of years, the Roman Empire is able to control and provide unity across the world. Eventually, the Roman Empire is going to become so big that they can't actually control it themselves. But initially, what causes them to be so successful is the Roman military. Now, the other aspect, kind of like what we looked at in Greece in terms of government engagement, in the Roman Empire, we see the development of the idea of a Roman republic. Now, Greeks were different. They adopted the idea of democracy, and democracy is that every man should have a voice. In Rome, it wasn't that every man should have a voice. They engaged in the idea of a republic, which is where every man should be represented. So a republic is where a person represents a large group and speaks on their behalf. And so out of this, we see Rome developing the concept of the Senate. And the Senate was 300 members who spoke on behalf of the citizens of the Roman Empire. And they were a strong, legislative, powerful voice in Rome. And this also continues to have a significant impact on the political implications going forward. So in Greece, you see the development of democracy. In Rome, you see the development of a representative government. Now, ultimately in Rome, just like in Greece, they fall back under the power of controlling authoritarian rulers. In Rome, they use the term emperors, and you see a long history of Roman emperors who provided control, at some times providing good control, at other times abusing the people, persecuting the people. But the Roman Empire, the impact of the Roman Empire comes about because, first off, their military was very powerful and used successful strategies, unified the world. But then their government also brought about the idea of a representative government. We see that in the Senate, and then we see them falling away from it and weakening because they fall under the control of single person control of the emperors who began to be able to dominate the Roman Senate. So if I was crafting this essay, here's what I would do. I would develop a thesis that looks at the strengths of both the Greek and the Roman Empire. And you could build that off of the idea that both empires relied very heavily on military and provided ongoing government policies going forward. And then inside of your body paragraphs, you could write a paragraph about the strengths of the Greek Empire, addressing the military strengths that they included and the government strengths that they included. And then you could do the same thing with the Roman Empire, again, with the military strengths that they brought about and the government strengths that they brought about. So make sure that you include in your essay an introductory statement, an introductory paragraph that includes a thesis. And then I would have 2 body paragraphs at least, maybe more, and then have a final concluding paragraph wrapping up the essay. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks, guys.